Please be aware, in this podcast series we talk about all areas of safeguarding, which some people may find upsetting. So please make sure you're okay listening to today's topic. Be mindful of those around you, such as children, that you might not want to listen in. Hi, I'm SSS Safeguarding Director Sam Preston.
And I'm former head teacher and content author Sarah Spinks.
Hello and welcome back to Safeguarding Conversations, the podcast where we unpack the latest research, guidance and practical insights to support the well-being of children and young people. Today we're talking about something that often slips down the list when we think about safeguarding and well-being: sleep.
Yeah, and it's one of those topics we all know is important, but rarely give enough time or attention to. So we talk about diet, exercise, screen time and mental health. But healthy sleep underpins all of that. And I think without it, everything else starts to unravel.
Exactly, Sarah. The evidence keeps piling up, showing that sleep isn't just rest. It's an active process that shapes the way children learn, think, and regulate their emotions.
So I think we should start with the basics, Sam. Sleep isn't downtime. It's when the brain's doing some of its most important work. So during deep sleep, the brain processes and stores information from the day, strengthening memory and problem-solving skills. Then during REM sleep, emotions are regulated. It's how children learn to manage stress and maintain stable moods.
Yeah, right. And the research really drives that home. A 2024 Frontiers in Sleep study found that children and teens with poor sleep were far more likely to experience anxiety, low mood, and behavioural problems, even when you take other things like family stress into account.
And that's such an important point, isn't it, Sam? Sleep isn't just about being tired. Poor sleep can actually reshape a child's emotional world.
And it's particularly vital for the developing brain. A 2025 study from the University of Cambridge and Fudan University in Shanghai showed that even 15 minutes more sleep per night made a measurable difference in memory and reasoning.
Yes, and the brain scans back that up, showing that teens with regular earlier bedtimes had more advanced development in the prefrontal cortex, which controls decision-making and emotional regulation.
So those small differences, an extra 15 minutes, a consistent routine, actually have a big impact on brain architecture. And I love how the researchers called sleep an essential nutrient for the brain.
Yeah, I think that's a great phrase. And actually, I'm just thinking my mum would love that because she always made us go to bed at 9:00. And it makes you realise we wouldn't dream of skipping meals for children. So why do we let them skip sleep?
Absolutely. Anyone who's worked with a child who's tired knows how quickly lack of sleep can lead to tears or temper.
Absolutely. And there's a neuroscience behind that. Without sleep, the part of the brain that controls emotions, the amygdala, I think it's called, becomes overactive. And the result, irritability, stress, and poor emotional control.
So it's the amygdala.
Amygdala, yes.
Yeah.
I knew it was something like that.
Yeah. And it's one of those tricky ones, isn't it? And, you're right. And in schools, that's what it really shows, isn't it? Tired pupils struggle with attention, organisation and social interactions. Teachers often notice that sleep-deprived children are more prone to conflict and slower to recover from setbacks.
I think it's also easy, to mistake tiredness for something else. It can mimic ADHD symptoms or it can amplify anxiety. That's why I think from a safeguarding perspective, we have to think about the whole child.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about learning, Sarah. Sleep is the brain's replay system. It literally rehearses the day's learning while we rest. That's how short-term memories become long-term knowledge.
Yeah, and in a 2025 BMJ Pediatrics Open Review, That confirmed that children who sleep well perform better academically. And it's not just about hours, it's the quality of sleep that matters too. So children who fall asleep easily, stay asleep, and wake rested do perform far better than those who toss and turn all night.
And that's where teenagers have it tough because their body clocks shift naturally, later during puberty, but schools often start early. So even a 30-minute delay in start times can make a big difference to mood and focus.
And I've seen that firsthand, in secondary settings, attendance, punctuality, and concentration. They do all improve when we take adolescent sleep cycles seriously.
Absolutely. And there is research to back that up. And I actually, at one time, I worked for an authority who were actually reconsidering altering the school day in secondary schools based on that research when we talk about optimum time for learning.
Yeah.
It's really quite interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, sleep and mental health are deeply connected. So poor sleep can trigger anxiety and depression, but anxiety and depression can also make it harder to sleep. So it then becomes this cycle.
Absolutely. Now, just reflecting there, Sam, that my secondary school that I went to, we didn't start till 9 and we went on until 4:45. And that was a high ranking grammar school. We're talking in the 70s and 80s, but still, it's quite interesting. And I think, for children who've experienced trauma or who live with chronic anxiety, nights can feel especially difficult. Bedtime routines, calm reassurance, and a predictable rhythm, that can make bedtime feel safer.
And the NHS has also noted the growing impact of screens, particularly social media use late at night. Many young people stay up scrolling, which not only delays sleep, but exposes them to distressing content just before bed.
Exactly. Guidance is clear. Reduce evening screen time, avoid caffeine, and keep consistent bedtimes. Within weeks, those changes, that can really help to transform mood and behaviour.
So, what can families and schools actually do to support better sleep?
Well, I think for families, start simple. A regular bedtime routine, calm environment, no screens or bright lights, and some gentle activity in the day to get the body moving. Even short walks in daylight help regulate the sleep cycle.
And schools can help too, embedding lessons about sleep into PSHE or wellbeing sessions, promoting quiet reflection time, and raising awareness among staff about the impact of tiredness on learning.
Exactly. I always say if a child's behaviour changes, then one of the first questions you've got to ask is, how's their sleep?
Yeah, and sometimes tiredness isn't just about routines. If a child's, consistently waking through the night, snoring heavily, or feels exhausted despite plenty of sleep, then it might be time to involve the GP.
Yeah, and sleep apnea, restless legs, or delayed sleep phase disorder, they're all treatable. And for teens, cognitive behaviour therapy for insomnia, is CBTI, that can be very effective. A simple sleep diary can also help professionals, spot patterns.
Sarah, I think the hardest shift with this is cultural. We live in a world that glorifies being busy, and rest is often seen as being lazy or unproductive.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. But as one researcher put it, rest isn't the opposite of productivity. It's what makes productivity possible. So I
Yeah.
think, protecting children's sleep is one of the most accessible ways that we can support their mental health and learning.
Do you know, it just took me when you said that, I just had this real sort of image in my mind of actually when I went to nursery school, which is obviously many years ago, and we had mats that we pulled out and we had a sleep.
Yeah,
During the
absolutely.
day.
Yeah,
Which it really makes sense now, doesn't
it
it?
does. It really does.
So I suppose that's the message we all need to reinforce. Parents, teachers, community leaders, sleep's a safeguarding issue, a well-being issue, and an education issue, all rolled into one.
Exactly. And it's time we give it the same importance as we give to diet, exercise, and emotional literacy because, sleep is how young people build resilience, self regulation, and brain power.
That's so interesting. And I should just say there are resources on the SSS Learning website and on our YouTube channel. We have top tips actually. I'm sure we've got some top tips for parents.
Yeah.
If you have a child experiencing difficulties with sleep, please do check that out. That's all for today's episode. You'll find the studies and resources we mentioned linked in our article on this topic. And if you're a teacher or DSL, maybe take this as a cue to talk to your pupils or their parents about how much rest they're actually getting. Sometimes small changes can make a big difference. So thanks for listening, and until next time, take care, sleep well, and keep those safeguarding conversations going.